So I want to shoot some Subsonic 300 blackout today. And the main topic is going to be this Hornady SUB-X. It's a 190 grain expanding subsonic bullet. Right on the box it says the patented flex tip technology aids in expansion down to 900 feet per second. So I want to test it with a couple different powders, see if it's stable, see if it groups, and then I want to shoot it into some ballistic gel. Now the SUB-X reminds me of this ballistic tip subsonic from Nosler that we tried several years ago. It's a 220 grain bullet. In the barrel I was shooting at the time, I couldn't get them to stabilize. So never really even got to see if they would group or how they would do in gel. I think the bullet's off the market now. Midway shows it as like limited production, not available, and I don't see it anywhere else. So I think it was just a short-term thing. So I've got 17 of these left. So I'm going to shoot the rest of these. We'll figure out a load, and hopefully at the very least we can shoot some into gel and just see what happens. Another thing I want to shoot is the 220 grain Hornady ELD-X. This is mainly for sighter ammo because I've got several boxes of these bullets. So hopefully this will work as sighters, get our scope dialed in. And since we've got the ballistic gel block out, we'll shoot some of these into gel as well. Now the ELD-X is a hunting bullet. It's an expanding bullet, but it does not expand down at subsonic velocities. So I expect to see little or no expansion. So the powders I pulled out today, an old favorite, Accurate 1680. We're only going to shoot it with the Hornady SUB-X, but also want to try Vihtavuori N120, and we'll shoot that with all of them. For primers, I'll use the CCI number 41s. And for brass, I've pulled out 70 pieces of converted Lake City 5.56 brass. This is the brass I made in a video a few months back. So just like we used to do in my old 300 blackout videos, we'll load up some of each combination and go out to get velocity and have a look and see if they're stabilizing. So Hornady has load data for the SUB-X, and so does the Hodgdon website. So consulting those two places, these are what I've come up with for the first 20 shots I want to take. And we'll just load up one at each powder charge weight. So first range trips is only going to be 20 shots. So let's get started. The brass has already been decapped and tumbled. It's looking nice and shiny. So let's go ahead and resize all 70 pieces. I'm going to use some Hornady one shot today. My last video was a 6.5 PRC video that was a stuck case nightmare. So hopefully 300 blackout won't give us any of that nonsense. We'll use my RCBS dies today. Just grabbing this, feels like I got something loose in here. So. Yep, my expander ball was coming loose. Might as well wipe it down while I'm in here. All right, now we're in business. I'm just going to screw it down until it touches and then drop the ram and go a little bit more. Just want to make sure it's making good contact with the shell holder. I've got my upper right here, so we'll check to make sure it fits in the gun. Felt good. This gun's kind of dirty. Okay, no problem. Goes right into battery. So that sizing die setting should be good. I'm just finishing up the slowest part here, which is chamfering and deburring the case mouths, and I'm just wiping these off just a little bit as I go. Now, I thought these might need trimmed. I pulled out my little Lee trimming setup, but none of them were even really close to needing trimmed. So we're ready for primers. So I'm just finishing up primers here. And we're ready to move on to the fun stuff. I still need to check my overall lengths. Yeah, let me grab my upper and we'll figure out what overall lengths to shoot. Which the Hornady SUB-X has a cantilever. So I've got an old case here with a slit dremelled in there so I can slide a bullet in. So right there where we're not quite at the cantilever yet is 2.1, and seated all the way down in is 2.046. So the Hornady manual says 2.050, or no, I'm sorry, Hodgdon said, the Hodgdon website said 2.050. Hornady manual said 2.070. So as far as cantilever alignment goes, I think 2.070 would be just about perfect. I just want to make sure we've got a little extra room to work with, so I've seated it really long, and I'm going to try and get it into the gun. Let's see if that hits the rifling. Didn't really feel any resistance there. And we're still nice and long. So it looks like we've got room in my chamber at least where I could shoot this longer if I wanted to. I think we'll go with 2.070. I think that cantilever should line up just about perfect. Yeah, that's what it looks like at about 2.070. We'll go with that. Now with this big 220 grain Hornady ELD-X, we'll want to shoot this at full magazine length as long as it fits in the gun. So there it is at 2.260. Yep, that seemed to fit in there no problem. Now with the 220 grain Nosler, in the last video I did with this, I shot it at 2.075, which is about right there. And actually, I think in that video, I couldn't get them to stabilize it at this overall length, and then I tried some other overall lengths and couldn't get them to stabilize no matter what I did. So yeah, we'll stick with this 2.075 if it fits in the gun. And yep, that snaps right in. So I've had my scale warming up for a bit. Let's tear it and test it with some check weights real quick. There's 5, 7, 9, 9.5, 10.5. So I've only got 5 charges to weigh out with accurate 1680. So I'm going to take Vihtavuori off the table for a few minutes. And there's our 1680. And what I should really do is mark this brass with the charge first. I need a new Sharpie. The point on that one's all messed up, but you get what I'm going for there. Yeah, now that Sharpie has a better point. I'm going to go ahead and just mark all of the brass while I'm at it, because this is going to be a pretty confusing powder weighing operation with no two alike, so it's easy to make a mistake. Okay, those are all marked and arranged. Luckily, I'm working with accurate 1680 and Vihtavuori N120. It's very easy to tell the two apart visually, so hopefully I don't do anything stupid. Okay, 10.8. I need to get a smaller scoop out of the box. This one's a little bit too big. All right, 11.0. It's very exciting stuff, powder weighing. So I think I'm just going to try and use our standard RCBS seating die. This is one of those adjustment knobs I had bought from Etsy. I'm going to put a piece of brass up in there with no bullet and then screw the die down until I feel it touching. This die has a taper crimp, so that should be the taper crimp hitting the case mouth. There it is right there. I'm going to back off of that like a half turn. All right, let's start with the Hornady SUB-X. Feels like our bullet's hitting, so we did seat a little bit there. Yep. We've got that cantilever to keep track of where we're at, so we need to go down quite a bit. A little bit more there. Hopefully that's not too much. Doesn't look like it. So was it 2.070 is what we're after, and I'm at 2.090. Here's the first one, it's perfect. Next one is a thousandth shorter. This next one here is 8 thousandths long. I want to seat the next couple and see. We might be getting compressed. These are the accurate 1680 loads that I'm seating first. So these are the ones most likely to be compressed, I think. No, next one's perfectly fine. We'll go back to that one here in just a minute. It might be this red tip. Maybe that one's just a little bit longer. Yeah, last one's perfect. Let me run this one through one more time. No, I think the tip's just a little bit different. So no marks on the bullets from the bullet seating stem. I can't even tell where it touched it. So that's good news. So I've moved on to the next row with Vihtavuori N120 and got another one here that's just a few thousandths long. No big deal. I'm not going to freak out about it. Well, this is 2 in a row now. The next one after that was 8 thousandths long. And then it's back to normal. I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so that's the SUB-X. That went really good. Like those seated nice and smooth. No problems with the seating stem, so feeling pretty good about that one. All right, next up is the big long 220 grain ELD-X. Okay, 15 adjustments later, I'm right at 2.260, and this one got a little bit crunchy right at the very end. So as we move up the charge weights, it might get crunchier. See how this next one feels. Yep, just a little crunch at the end. And it looks like the seating stem is leaving just the tiniest little bit of a ring there, but nothing bad. All right, that's good to go. This is our max charge. It maybe got just a little bit longer with more compression, but nothing I'm going to worry about adjusting for. And that's what the bullet mark looks like. I'm good with this. Okay, on to the Nosler. 2.075 inches is what we're after. Okay, we're perfect, and that's what she looks like. Bullet looks good. Okay, this is the last one. Let's get out to the range. Okay, so I've put our target at 20 yards. So I was looking up the minimum distance for the lab radar, and it looks like it's about 50. So I want to try it out here. If it doesn't pick up the first couple, I'll go in and get the magneto speed, and we'll change the setup. And I'm going to start with the 220 grain ELD-X because we've got plenty of them. If I had to go back in and reload these, I could certainly do that. So this gun has a 16-inch Wilson Combat barrel with a 1-in-7 twist. Let's see what happens on this first one. Well, it didn't work, but it didn't trigger. Well, at least that first bullet hole looks good. So I changed the trigger settings. Let's see how this works. This is another one of the 220 grain ELD-X's. Yeah, that didn't work either. All right, let me go get my microphone. Okay, let's try this again. I'm going to go over to the ballistic tips. Maybe waste a couple of those. So I think those first two shots, I shot them through the same hole accidentally. So I was just looking down my bore to be 100% sure. Started aiming, and I was like, I better check. Just be totally sure I don't have a barrel obstruction. Hey, we got a velocity. 1,023 feet per second. Beautiful. Okay, let's keep shooting these same ones. So that was 9.4 grains, this is 9.6. I think some of those bullet holes are looking a little funky. Okay, let's go back to the 220 grain ELD-X and shoot these last three. All right, so far this is perfect. Our velocities with both of those bullets were right in the perfect neighborhood. I'm normally shooting for 1,050 feet per second whenever I work up my subsonic loads. So it looks like 9.8 grains might be perfect for both of those. All right, so now moving on to the 190 grain SUB-X. First, let's start with Vihtavuori N120. All right, that's perfect as well. That fourth shot was 1,056 feet per second. Okay, last five. These are the 190 SUB-X with accurate 1680, starting with 10.8, moving up 0.2 each. Okay, velocities look to be in the perfect range. Let's get back to the bench, make some charts. We'll have a closer look at some of these bullet holes. So all of the bullet holes looked good except the Nosler. The Nosler did have a bunch like that where they're just a little bit sideways. But over here with the SUB-X, everything's looking good with both powders. And also those ELD-X holes look great. So stability overall looked pretty good. So I was going to do some charts, but just looking at the list of velocities, I don't think I'm going to bother. We had shots with each combination that were right at 1,050 feet per second, and I just want to load up more of those. And that's what we use for our gel testing and accuracy testing. I also want to load up just 5 shots at the minimum charge of N120 with the SUB-X. It gave us 974 feet per second, and I wanted to have some of those to shoot into the gel as well to see how a slightly lower velocity would change things as far as expansion goes. So I've already loaded them up. 15 shots with the ELD-X, just so we've got some extras for sighters. 10 shots with the Nosler, 10 shots with the SUB-X and N120, 10 shots with the SUB-X and Accurate 1680, and then 5 shots with that light charge of N120. So I had the camera handy in case something interesting happened, but nothing did. Just weighed out the charges and seated the bullets. So let's get back out to the range. Okay, so this is one of the 20% NATO blocks from Clear Ballistics. It's more dense than the FBI blocks, so we shouldn't see as much penetration. We should be able to capture everything here in one block, I believe. I'm going to start out with the Hornady SUB-X at full velocity, so 1,050 feet per second. This is Vihtavuori N120, but that really doesn't matter. So I'm just going to step back about 10 feet and we'll see what happens. Holy crap, that blew right through it. I guess I'm going to have to go get my second block. Okay, so I've stacked my second block here. It hasn't been melted down. I really didn't expect to need it today. Okay, so that one did stop in the first block, right about there. Let me shoot one more. That one made it just into the second block here. All right, I'm going to try the slower rounds now. They're not all that much slower. We chronographed them 974, the chronograph said yesterday. So they'll probably look just like these that were at 1050. Let's shoot them. So I've captured 4. And 3 of them went just into the second block here. Hopefully you can see 2 of them right there. There's one there, and then there's one back on the back side here in the second block. So I want to go ahead and dig these out before I lose track of which ones are which. All right, so this is what we're left with. All of the bullets had that flex tip still right there at the point, but like they're all loose. They'll come right out. I'd have to call that pretty decent expansion. Oh, so the 2 on the right were the ones that were the higher velocity, and the 2 on the left are the ones that were lower velocity. Okay, let's shoot the others. We'll weigh these later back at the bench, or I'll go grab my scale here in a few minutes maybe. But yeah, so this is 5 wound channels coming through the first block. Okay, let's move on. We'll shoot a couple of the Noslers next. Okay, now both of these, they dropped their green tip shortly after entry, and they only expanded right there. And it looks like each of the lead cores separated from the jackets. So definitely less penetration and more fragmentation than we're seeing with the Hornady. All right, let's shoot a couple of the ELD-X bullets. I can't tell if I'm capturing anything. I can't find them. So I'm gonna turn the blocks and try a couple more. Yeah, I don't think I'm capturing any. I think they're going straight through. Maybe I'll see a little bit more whenever I'm reviewing the video. But I think they're just going straight through. Not a huge surprise. Didn't expect them to expand anyway. So I grabbed my scale. Let's see what these weigh. So here's the SUB-X. There's its little tip. You can see past the glare, it's exactly 190 grains, so it didn't lose anything. Here's the next one, 190. Here's the third one, 190. And then here's the last one. It's also right there. So these didn't lose anything. My poor little scale doesn't like the wind out here. Let's, I mean, it doesn't matter. A couple tenths really does not matter. So here's a jacket, a core, and then, I don't know, a little bit of scraps from the Nosler bullet. Actually, the best way to measure this might be all of it divided in half. So 425, half of that. We recovered 212 per bullet, more or less. And those were 220 grain bullets. So while I was in there grabbing my scale, I went ahead and grabbed some old expanded bullets from our testing several years ago. This is the Maker Rex, a 200 grain all copper bullet. And this is what I used to kill that deer. Here are some more examples. These things always just opened up. I mean, they're like mechanical broadheads almost, is the way I think about them. So these were my choice back then. These are examples of the Lehigh Defense. I think these were also 200 grain bullets. So they had a tendency to fold back a little bit more, but still outstanding expansion always. Just trying to see if I've got an example here. I do remember that with the Lehigh, every once in a while we would lose one of the petals, but most of the time they just folded back like this. And you'd have to imagine the destruction as this solid copper bullet just folds out and back. It's got to be a tremendous wound channel during expansion. Now, the only downside to these bullets is that they're expensive. You know, they're more expensive than the lead core bullets that we tested today. Here are a couple Hornadies. I'm sure it's a similar situation when these petals are peeling back. I'm sure these would do a great job. Like, I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing here. But for something where, you know, I'm not going to shoot a ton of these rounds, I feel like I can justify the cost of something like this that, you know, I like the way these expand better. Plus, if we end up with restrictions on lead bullets for hunting purposes, you know, I'm ready to go here already. Well, I guess I should mention the other downside to these all copper bullets were that they were not perfectly stable. It's looking like these Hornadies are perfectly stable. These were more like what we saw with the Nosler Ballistic Tips, where the holes in the paper look a little bit funky. You can tell you're not getting that perfect stability, and usually the groups weren't all that great. But the way I see it in this application, you know, I see Subsonic 300 Blackout as a bow range weapon, or maybe a crossbow range weapon, 50, 60, 70 yards. I'm not going to go past that. So the absolute precision, tiny groups at longer range are just not something I'm worried about in this context. So just wanted to give my thoughts on that. You know, we haven't even shot, these might be the most accurate bullets we've ever seen, these Sub-X's. But I guess I just want to set the stage for, I don't really care how accurate they are. I think I'm probably still going to be leaning toward the all copper options. And this was 5+ years ago. So they may have improved on these designs. I really need to do some testing with whatever the latest is out there in this style of bullet. Okay, let's shoot some groups. Okay, so I'm going with a target at 50 yards. That way, if some of these groups get big, especially the Nosler I'm a little bit worried about with its stability problems, if it wants to shoot a big group, hopefully it'll still be manageable at 50 yards as far as getting it on camera and all that crap goes. So I think we're shooting a little bit low, need to make a couple scope adjustments. We'll do that here first with the 220 grain ELD-X with 9.8 grains of Vihtavuori N120. Let's see if these will group. Okay, that's just a little bit left. That might be good. That first velocity was 1,058 feet per second. So that's good to see. I'm gonna go ahead and top off the magazine with the rest of them. Okay, so that's not particularly good. It's like at least 2 inches there. And for 50 yards, that's pretty rough. Average velocity was a little bit low, 1,020 feet per second with a standard deviation of 20.1. Okay, next is the 220 grain Nosler. I've got 8 of these. This might be ugly. Okay, so we had that one dive down there low and to the right, but I mean, otherwise it wasn't any worse than those ELD-X groups, was it? Or group. Average velocity was perfect, 1,051 feet per second, standard deviation 16.4, extreme spread 40. Okay, next is the Hornady SUB-X with our load that should be right around 1,050 feet per second with Vihtavuori N120, 10.6 grains of N120. That's what I'm talking about right there. Holy crap. So average velocity 1,049 feet per second, standard deviation 10.4. I mean, that's got to be a 0.4 maybe, something like that. I'll try and measure these out and put it up there for you, but you know more than I do. All I know right now is that it's a really good group, really good. Okay, same bullet, the SUB-X, this time with accurate 1680, 11.2 grains. That's another really good looking group. Average velocity was 1,067 feet per second with a 12.1 standard deviation. So I've only got 3 left. These are the ones that I had loaded down. This is like the starting charge, 950-ish probably feet per second. We'll find out here in a second. So that first shot that went high, the velocity was way high. Yeah, first velocity was 1,041 feet per second, and then the next two were 997 and 931. So maybe one of those weird things. Maybe I screwed up one of my charge weights or something. But I think that accounts for why the first one didn't group with the second two. Maybe. I don't know. So extremely impressive accuracy. Yeah, so that average velocity was 990 feet per second. Standard deviation 55.6, extreme spread of 110.3. That's not good. That's what one bad shot in a really small sample size gives you, I guess. So extremely impressive accuracy. We haven't even shot half the box. So I've got enough for another video. Definitely want to do another video at least. And I think we'll shoot 100 yards next time just so we get a little bit better resolution on these groups to see what's going on. So I mean, I guess I've already rambled enough about my thoughts on the bullet. It's an impressive bullet. Yeah, and with the expansion I saw, like, I don't doubt that this would be a good hunting bullet. I think it would do a good job. But it just still seems to me that the all copper options are the better place to put the load development work in, you know? Maybe not. I'm certainly open to being persuaded. When a bullet shoots that good at groups, I want to like it. I want to use it. Actually, I guess the next logical video would be to shoot them at absurdly high velocities in 300 Win Mag and see what happens. Maybe we'll do something goofy like that as well. I don't know. But I think I'm just going to end it right here. Appreciate you guys joining me. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. What have I done? Lord help me.